Let's open the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission for Tuesday, January 10th. Welcome to the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Webster Groves. This commission recommends to the City Council the adoption of ordinances designating single structures or sites, portions of structures, groups of structures, landscape elements, works of art, or integrated combinations thereof having special historical or architectural interests or value as landmarks or historic districts. To ensure that other persons who wish to present evidence are heard, the commission limits the comments of individuals to 3 minutes. Groups of 3 or more shall elect a spokesperson who shall be limited to 7 minutes. Do we need to do roll call?
Everybody's here. You've got all of your members.
And then I guess if we want to do approval of last month's meetings minutes.
Maybe we approve the minutes.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay. So moving on, we do have public hearing, Lestron Homes nomination for designation as city designated historic structures. So the purpose of the public hearing this evening is to determine if the structures and properties located at 101 Eldridge Avenue, 121 Eldridge Avenue, 124 Eldridge Avenue, 125 Eldridge Avenue, 604 Fair Oaks Avenue, 324 Hazel Avenue, 330 Hazel Avenue, 441 South Maple Avenue, 208 West Old Watson Road, 676 Plateau Avenue, 226 Simmons Avenue, and 228 Simmons Avenue should be designated as local historic structures. I would ask that city staff read the criteria for consideration of nomination as set forth in section 52.190 of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Secretary of the Interior Standard for Preservation so that those attending will have an understanding of the basis for determining nomination. The members of the commission will consider these factors when making a determination. City staff will make a presentation on the information gathered for this nomination. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this proposed nomination?
We don't go to that yet.
Sorry.
Stop with where we were before. We'll do the reading of those 2 items and then the staff presentation. Then we'll ask if anyone wants to speak in favor. So you have before you this evening the only item on our agenda, which is to discuss this nomination. There's a basic presentation that I'm going to go through with all the information. But just to start with, this is for a local historic nomination. This is not a National Register listing request. The most important thing that we do need to go through is the criteria that the commission is going to be reviewing it against. I've highlighted in underlining the criteria that applies. But as we get to the very end, you'll notice that in order to nominate something, you only have to have 1 item under the criteria that it meets in order to move it forward. So the historic criteria includes its character, interest, or value as a part of the development, heritage, or cultural characteristics of the community, county, state, or country. I've highlighted the next one that I think would be applicable. Its potential to be returned to an accurate historic appearance, regardless of alterations or insensitive treatment that can be demonstrated to be reversible. Its embodiment of distinguished characteristics of an architectural type, valuable for the study of a period type, method of construction or use of indigenous materials. Its embodiment of elements of design, detailing materials, or craftsmanship that render it architecturally significant. Its embodiment of design elements that make it structurally or architecturally innovative, and its unique location or singular physical characteristic that makes it an established or familiar visual feature of the neighborhood, community, or city. Its suitability for preservation or restoration, its potential to yield information important to history and prehistory. So the way that 52190 criteria is in this in our code section, any structure, property, or area that meets 1 or more of those criteria shall also have significant integrity of location, design, materials, and workmanship. It may be worthy of preservation and restoration. And then just as a clarification, we are doing these as individual structures, not as a district. Districts are contiguous in their nature and then can have things or areas that are defined, but these are just structures individually. The other item that we look at, and the Secretary of Interior Standards has a couple different things related to preservation, related to restoration, other things like that. The one that we focused on is related more to preservation of how to, in looking at the various ones, they all had repeated standards. So I put this one on there, but there is the ability to use the other of the Secretary of Interior Standards. But looking at the different standards in how it should be, the historic character being retained and preserved, replacement of intact or repairable historic materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property shall be avoided. So the ability to restore some of these back to using the materials that that were original to the structures. We know that some of them have been demolished, and when they've been demolished, people have kept stores of some of the materials. In going back through some of the old articles, it was interesting. The developer actually still had a number of the materials stored away in their home. Looking at the rest of the Secretary of Interior Standards, looking at different things about the existing condition of any historical features, being able to determine the appropriate level of intervention needed and how that would work. There are more chairs over here. Thank you. So in looking at those two sets, those are the standards that are reviewed, both the Secretary of Interior Standards as well as the code section within the city code. So we're going to go through the history in regards to the Lustron homes briefly, then go the history of Lustron homes in Webster Groves. And then from there, go through some of the key elements. Again, the copy of the full packet that's available online, I have one copy of it in case anyone needs to look through any of the information. So in terms of the history of these homes, the homes were an idea by a gentleman who had determined that he would try to put together prefabricated enamel steel panel houses starting in 1946. The corporation officially started business in 1947 in Columbus, Ohio, in a large factory. There was funding that was included, a 7-year loan from the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. And it's interesting if you go through some of the old articles of how when they defaulted quite quickly after the first couple of years, there were numerous articles about the concern about the default on how people had had a lot of problems related to what money was in that loan that was given to them. The production and financing of the Lustron homes mimicked the auto industry. So all the pieces were able to sort of go through a process, and then those pieces were able to be bundled up all in one manner in order to move them quickly to the location. The enameled steel panels were in a variety of colors, which allowed the homeowners to clean and maintain their homes. The homes arrived on a trailer, and on-site assembly took 2 to 5 weeks. Approximately 1,000 square foot house, 1-story house with built-in cabinets, shelves, closets, dishwasher, clothes washer, radiant heat. If you look through the building permits through Webster Groves, they note all of those different elements and note the radiant heat. Lustron Corporation produced 2,680 homes between 1948 and 1950. And a little later, I'll talk about the ones, but ours in Webster were permits were pulled basically in 1948 and 1949, primarily. The bulk of them were done before the beginning of 1949. Surveys of homeowners indicated a high level of satisfaction at the time, but there were problems, including the financing, some with the permitting. There's an article from the city of St. Louis that identifies that they had to change their codes, and actually brought up the idea that they had to change their codes in order to have the Lustrons constructed. More than 37 million in loans came from the RFC, and then there was a foreclosure and liquidation sale in 1951. So it really started in 48. There were some articles in 47 and 46 about the idea of how to pull it all together and produce it. And then it was all shut down in 1951. This is a little bit about the local history. You can see that they looked for lots in order to determine where to put these homes. They put ads in the paper asking for vacant lots where someone could place the structures. In 1946, this article that was in the St. Louis paper talked about they were ready to produce up to 400 of them, mass produce them, and start putting them in the community as a whole. The company was the Modern Housing Corporation, and they were located on Brentwood Boulevard. And the Modern Housing Corporation is the name on all of our permits that we were able to find for the houses in Webster Groves. Some of the local history, it appears that the very first one was at 224 Simmons, which has since been demolished. The building permit was submitted in August 16th of 1948. It's the first one that could be found through our old system that we now have all of them scanned in. 226 Simmons and 228 Simmons permits were pulled just a short time later in December 1948. This photo right here is an image that was taken from the Post-Dispatch in 1949, which shows an image of that 224 Simmons, which again is no longer there. Additional articles, the Webster News Times in 1949, 12 Lustron houses had been erected in Webster Groves at that point. These are the 12 houses that are listed here. And 505 Ridge, which is the only one that's not in your nomination for this evening because it is already been nominated and is already a local historic structure, was the home that they chose as to be a home that you would visit for their advertised features to look and see. The primary home that it looks like was the very first one that was advertised appears to be one that was over in Richmond Heights. I'll have to look at that. There was an ad, but it definitely wasn't one of the ones in Webster. Then a number of ads in the Post-Dispatch talking about how you could go and visit the homes and see them before you bought one. So these are the 21 Lustron homes that we had documented at a key point in time in Webster Groves. 8 of them have been removed. So we have a couple there. We have one on Baker that was disassembled in 2005. We have another, the one that was removed in 2016. Elmwood Avenue, which was one of the first 12, was removed in 1995. We have a couple that have been noted that have siding added. 44 Hart was removed in 2019. The one on Ridge was removed in 2005, another one in 2005, another one in 2014, and another one in 1995. So we've had quite a few that have been removed in the last 10 years or so, a little more than 10 years. 2005 is a little more than 10 years ago, but I can keep hoping it's still 10 years ago. And so in looking at that, that's the areas that we are concerned with in regards to, we've gone from, having 21 down to 13 are now still in place in Webster Groves. Not all of them are in great condition. Many of them, some have siding added and other elements like that. One is already designated as historic. The one that's designated is the Red Star. The blue stars are the primary locations of the other houses within Webster Groves. So the part of the nomination process is that we put on record the history, the reasoning behind why it is believed that these should be nominated as local structures. There is a series of additional information that's on the website in a separate link. There's also the link to the packet on the city's website. The packet includes the evidence that we have to put on for the record for nominating any of those structures. That evidence includes the ownership and legal information per St. Louis County's records. It includes letters that were sent to the owners of the property and the property itself back in September with the intent to nominate. We did hold a meeting at that time in November. So it was inviting people to a meeting in November. Also in the packet is the PowerPoint from November 9th, which was the public information session concerning the intent to nominate. Copies of all the letters of the notice of this public hearing that was sent to owners December 27th. copy of the public hearing notice that was posted on the properties. We also did put it in Webster Kirkwood Times, even though we didn't need to. It's posted on the city's website. It also pre-notified, because the next step in the process would be to move forward to city council. So if a vote is taken this evening, we have already advertised to move it forward to a hearing before the council, which would be the next step. All of our documentation, which includes a number of the articles, all that documentation is available on the website, but also in the packets. We also always have to identify that we have a copy of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which is available online, and copy of the Secretary of Interior Standards. And those are also available on the city's website online. So that kind of ends the basic presentation and the basic information. And so I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, and I know you've got your steps. So questions can be asked, obviously, of staff. Just for those of you that are in the room, this was a project taken on by the commission, so it isn't an outside person who had asked for this. This was a project that the commission had done some research on, of other things to potentially nominate within the community. So I know many of you aren't going to have necessarily questions of me, since you helped to gather a lot of this information and do the research. But this is the opportunity for questions of staff before you open it up to the public to be able to speak. Any questions from the members? Okay. So if you want to read your next.
Okay, I got ahead of myself earlier. Apologize for that. So next up is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this proposed nomination?
Okay.
I guess it's a little redundant, so
Just clarify that a little bit.
If you want to, so with a nomination, there are classifications as speaking in favor of it, is speaking against the nomination, and then there's kind of more of a neutral. You're allowed to have 3 minutes to speak, but then there is also the opportunity that the commission can ask additional questions. So it doesn't mean that your 3 minutes are just 3 minutes, but you have that opportunity. And we're always supposed to formally say, if you want to speak in favor first, because normally if it is something where it's been nominated by an individual, they usually do ask to speak first. Yes.
I would speak in favor. I don't have anything particular to say. I live next door to one, and it makes me very sad that it's.
Can I just have you, sorry, can I have you say your name and your address so it's in the record? And if you want to come closer, you'll be able to be heard just closer to the table. You'll be able to be heard on our microphones a little better, because we have a couple people. It's being recorded for our Zoom meeting, and it's on YouTube for later.
Hi, my name's Doris Willie. My husband and I live at 216 West Old Watson, which is right where Rock Hill hits West Old Watson. And we have a little blue lustron next to us that is just falling down, and it makes me so sad. I've always thought it was so adorable, and the guy who lives there doesn't appear to care anything about it, and he doesn't live there anymore. So if this would in any way encourage him to sell it to someone who might love it or do something to it, I'd be in favor regardless, but that would be my hope, is that something positive would come for the little house next to me.
Or anyone else?
Sorry, I don't know when I should ask the question. Barbara Birding, I live at 101 Eldridge, one of the Lustron homes that is up for nomination. I guess I know we've received letters as far as we'd love to make it a historical home. I guess our reservation in owning it, we've lived there for going on 9 years now, and we love it. I think our hardest challenge, and where I guess we don't know where it would lie within Webster goes, but maintaining that house is very difficult. Trying to find appropriate companies to come in and do any sort of repairs, to have the knowledge, the parts is one of the hardest. One of the Lustron homes that was demolished, we had salvaged some parts from that gentleman who was very nice. But the upkeep as far as just the historical value is difficult, so I don't know how that would play in if we were like, yeah, let's be a historic landmark. Where is there help that we can get from that, I guess is one of our concerns.
Or is there restrictions for? what
Yeah,
we're
excessive.
able to-
Yeah, what are the restrictions and stuff like that? Cause like I know we've had small repair on our roof, but it's not anywhere where it needs to be. We've done our own upkeep as far as, washing the outside and making sure all that's done. But I also know like our floors need to be repaired. Our bathtub that is part of the actual house.
It's galvanized steel, it's gonna
It's
rust
actually
over
part of
time.
So like, you can't just pull the bathtub out, you gotta take that. So those are our main concerns. I mean, we don't wanna leave the house, we love it, but it's the challenges since we've been there, those are things that have come up as far as that goes. So I'm not for nor against, I just didn't know where
It all
those-
works out.
how that all works out.
So we did do, when we did the intent PowerPoint, we do have like, you can actually watch it on YouTube.
Okay.
It'll talk a little bit more about all the different, because this is not a final step. There's still another step to go before
Mhm.
city council. But that YouTube video did talk a lot about like, what are the benefits? What are some of the things that you have to think about? This is not going to prevent someone from demolishing it per se. It just puts an extra step through that they need to come before this board to ask for permission, whereas before it was, they just tore it down, and it was just gone. So it does do that. This isn't nominating for the National Register. National Register sometimes has additional funding. And I know we're actually meeting with the State Preservation Office in March to talk a little bit more about any kinds of funding options and things like that. It would be worth connecting you up with the other property owner who owns the one that did get nominated years ago. And I know that he's an architect and he's done a lot of maintenance, done some different things, but it would be good to probably get some of the owners to talk with one another about how things have been maintained or where to find parts, or if there is another one that's coming down. Like we tried really hard with the one on, I think I heard you, Hart.
Yeah.
We tried really hard with him, trying to connect him up with people so that
Oh,
the
yeah,
parts.
he tried.
My stepmom's the one that randomly found it, and so we got in contact with him and.
And yeah, we-
salvaged some parts.
Cause the roof's the hardest thing to maintain, and if a tree falls on it, we're pretty much out of a house, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah,
So we did grab some roof shingles and some doors and some other
Some
stuff.
random
To help
parts.
kind of reassemble things that fall apart over time, so.
well, keep it as original as possible.
Yeah.
So we can definitely send you that link so you can
That would
have
be
more
great.
information, and definitely get you that. Because it was funny, it was an extensive presentation and no one showed up. It's recorded. It's completely recorded.
Yeah.
So I think everyone here is pleased that a number of people did show up today, because no one showed up to the other one where we were talking about like thinking about the nomination.
Yeah,
But that is recorded, it's on YouTube, you'll be able to watch the whole thing, it has the sound and the slides.
fantastic, thank you.
And also, if I may, as far as the city's review of the work that's done on these types of designated houses, it's confined to the exterior. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
outside.
Oh, okay.
So that might help kind of ease your mind a little. And there's more, like Maura said, on that YouTube video.
Mhm.
I think there'll be a lot of good information.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I might be speaking out of turn, but Jabetha Temming, Kimberly Jabetha Temming, I live at 330 Hazel. I also, it's a Lustrand home too. I've been there since 2003. And I want to echo everything you said. It's extremely difficult to properly maintain the home. It looks like you don't give a crap, but it's just you can't find parts. Or services rendered are so expensive. The measurements of the houses are so irregular that you can't just go to Home Depot and get a regular standard door. It's so challenging and so expensive. My gutters are falling apart but I don't have the money to fix them. So it's a true challenge. And although it breaks my heart to see homes, you know, we want to keep our history, but I hate to say, I understand when people, you just can't at some point unless you're rich and know how to do construction.
Prefabricator for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you.
I guess, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this proposed nomination?
Again, I would want to know the implications, and I think you clarified it a little bit. I think you did by saying it only relates to the exterior.
And we'll definitely, I'll make sure that anyone who needs that link, it's the City of Webster Grove's YouTube page. And you can go back to, it's the November, I actually put online on the agenda for the meeting. If you go to the meeting agenda, there's a link to the packet, and the packet has the PowerPoint slides. But in addition, if you go to the city website, or the YouTube site, you can find it's the November 9th.
Is there something we can give them?
I can email to people, but yeah, it's a link. Here,
It's right there.
Oh, no, that's not. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop share for a second. I'm gonna go to. That's one of our members. It's very efficient. It's like very efficient.
Really at all.
Hold on, I'm gonna go into, so City of Webster Groves YouTube, and actually I do need to share this screen so that your screen YouTube. No, I can share. So if you go to the City of Webster Groves YouTube page, and you scroll down, all of our meetings are now available. So if you go to all the videos, and you scroll down to November. So we've got Historic Preservation Commission, November 9th. And it's 45 minutes long. But you'll see there's a full presentation, which includes, so Carol, who's a member here, who talked about some of the advantages and what it covers and things like that, also sits on our architecture review board. So we do have a cross between the two. And Angela also used to sit on the architecture review board, served multiple terms. But if you go onto the page, you'll be able to see we got to a certain point, and the slides are all on here, but audio is on here. So you'd be able to go to this.
Perfect.
Oh, there we go. So anyway, that is all on there, but that's probably the easiest way to find it, but I can also give you direct links.
Yep, that'll work.
It's just Michael giving us that YouTube channel. Yeah, he did a good job. Hey, he's working hard. I'm gonna go back to the power. Oh, wait, where's my PowerPoint? There's the PowerPoint. So if you want to, if there was anyone else who wanted to speak.
Will they have an opportunity to speak at city council also?
Yes, most definitely. So
Might have more impact.
yeah, so this is the first step. So this step takes us to, in fact, let me see if I can pull up really quick. I think I can pull it off of here. Sorry. Doing a few things. I probably should have saved this one out, but I can come in here. I can go to the November meeting and I can open it up because I've got a great, I didn't mean to download. I meant to open. I've got a nice slide that talks about the timeline. So let me go to the timeline slide because I had not added it into this presentation. But the timeline slide should be here. Okay, let me go back to sharing. Share screen, and we'll share this one. And then we'll go to current slide. So the way that this works, staff did a lot of research with the commission. We had to provide certain notifications to hold the hearing. We then are supposed to send out a letter of determination to everybody again, because not everybody came, to say that the Historic Preservation Commission is moving it forward or is not moving it forward to council. That will give the date of the council meeting. And then it moves forward with a hearing before the council, similar to this. We'll make a presentation again to the council with the recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission. Everyone has an opportunity to speak again at that meeting. And then after that, they make a determination. At that hearing, they will not make a final decision until 2 weeks later, the meeting 2 weeks after that. They hold the hearing, take in all their information, then can continue to think if they have any other questions or concerns, and then we send out a letter of determination. The timeline we had looked at, this was our example timeline, but it is the timeline we worked with, was holding the public hearing before Historic Preservation today, Tuesday, January 10th, having a city council public hearing on Tuesday, February 7th. They'll hold the first and second reading that evening, and then the third reading would then move forward to Tuesday, February 21st. And then we would send out another determination letter. Again, this is just local, not national. There are a number of things in our packets online that will show you that there are a number of national designations in other cities across the country. Ohio is the one that has probably the largest and a lot of that. But Brentwood has also been talking with us a little bit about trying to, early on had asked, they thought we were already getting ready to nominate because they have a large cluster there. And they were talking about potentially tying in with, like once they saw how ours went, potentially tying in with it. We had not proposed any design guidelines or anything else above and beyond that. It would go, if there were changes to the exterior, it would go to the Architecture Review Board. But if there are anything on the interior, just goes through staff review. And if it is going to be demolished or requested to be demolished, it would come back for a hearing before the commission here. So those are kind of the steps. I'm gonna hit
So city council's not going to have it tonight? I thought it was, there would
a
be
month
some-
later.
I thought there was something introduced there.
No,
tonight.
not till a month later.
Okay.
No, it only goes for historic preservation.
Okay,
Yeah, only before historic.
and
preservation.
everyone here will clearly know when that date is.
Yes, so another letter will go out to everybody, as if they haven't gotten enough letters already. Another letter will go out from the city council. And we send that out. There will be another ad in the Webster Kirkwood Times. I know there's been some concern, the signs being out for that long a period of time is pretty long. We might go pull them and then put them back up maybe a week before the council meeting. So it's not in everybody's yards for that long of a period of time. So those next steps would take us through that part of the process. If there isn't anything else, you can close to comments, or if anyone else wants to ask any other questions.
Could you speak a little bit more to the significance of if a home was nominated or, was deemed a historic?
I'm sorry, what?
So if my home,
So the two biggest things would be if you were going to make changes to the exterior. You were going to put siding on the siding doesn't require a permit. But if you were going to try to put an addition on the house, you would go before the Architecture Review Board, and we hold a hearing on historic structures. But the hearing is the same as anything else. You vote that same night. It just has the ability for neighbors to weigh in or ask questions when it comes to a historic district or a historic structure. If you're going to demolish it, it will come here for a request to demolish and to request to get a certificate of appropriateness to be given permission to demolish. So those are the two things. All your permits that you would get for your interior, if you were doing things on the interior, are the same, no matter what. We're not designated the land itself, but most of them are on small enough pieces of property. Sometimes if it's a larger piece of property, when you designate the land, there's park areas or there's something else that might be impacted when it comes to larger districts. that are included. It's just the structure, so nothing related to the land. Yeah, and the YouTube will also help a little bit more. Carol really went through a lot of that detail in that YouTube to talk about like all the different scenarios.
And the honor. Yeah, and you can add on to your house. You can make changes. It's just reviewed by the Architectural Review Board and at a public hearing of the ARB, your neighbors, and you will, of course, have a chance to make any comments. And with historic structures, we understand we review historic structures all the time at the ARB, and some things are just not feasible to replace accurately.
Right.
So, we will take a look, and there is flexibility about if you have a condition on your house that needs to be remedied and you can't get that exact part, there is some flexibility there. So, we do understand the practicalities of all of that, if that helps address concerns. And we do go on it, more detail on the YouTube video.
Or it might be beneficial to talk about Marshall. When that stretch of the retail businesses was designated. I'm not sure what, like Marshall and over by Avery.
No, I know that, but like,
Just so they can know this area got designated locally
oh,
and kind of the benefits that came out of that as far as.
sure. So for those that know where Maypop is, the little strip next to Maypop, that's the last historic designation that we did. That one, it used to have a vacant lot, that if you go and you'll probably look for it now, the second building into the west, if you're coming from Maypop and then there's a building on the corner, the second building in, there was no structure there. It had been torn down over time and a new structure, completely new modern structure was built. But in the historic district, they tried to replicate sort of the volumetric space of what had been there. It's a 2-story structure. They did a patio space on the top that has a wall that has openings that are where the windows had been, where the house used to be, or the structure, 2-story structure used to be. There's been some other renovations within that district. And they've been working a little bit more together after that local nomination. There isn't necessarily funding for that, but they've been doing it on their own. But that was the last one that was done individually as a district. We also in that same time frame did one individual house. There was a house that was in extremely poor condition. They were able to tear off all the stuff that had been added onto the front porch. They were able to go in and completely recreate the entire structure, and that was individually nominated at the same meeting that we did the entire district. I'm going to forget the name of it, but when I went back to look at the public hearing PowerPoint, I found out that I had presented to the council on both of them on the same night, and they were on the same city council PowerPoint. But I'm happy to show other things if anyone else wants to look at those.
There's no other comments or questions. I guess we'll close the public hearing. So all discussion beyond this point relative to this matter needs to be among the commission members only. Do not ask questions of the speaker. So you all have the ability to have further conversations. If you feel like someone needs to, you can reopen the hearing if you need to, if someone else does still feel that there's a comment or a question. But if we've gotten all the comments and questions, it's now among you all to discuss and determine whether you would like to vote this evening and whether you would like to recommend this forward to council.
And it's still a public meeting. You don't have to leave.
No, you can definitely stay. It's just that you can't speak further in regards to this next step.
But if anyone wants to just say so, and we'll say, yeah. What you have to say.
To follow all this.
We just have to follow all the protocols. We can always reopen it. So this is the point where you can discuss amongst yourselves whether you would like to move this forward to city council. And if you would like to determine, and I can go back whether you're in agreement that it meets the various historic criteria that are in the city ordinances. I underlined the ones that I thought were most appropriate. But that would be part of that'll be part of the findings of fact that goes to the city council.
So I definitely think a lot of the public comments that were brought to our attention tonight are very important to hear. And obviously, if we do have information as a commission that we can share with members who commented tonight regarding their concerns or their questions, can we provide them with that information? I know you mentioned like the 505 Ridge Avenue owner maybe connecting.
I would want to talk with the owner
Right.
and make sure that it's okay to share his information, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely
And
could.
specifically, just leading up to tonight's meeting, I had found an old article in STL Today
Mhm.
from 2017, I believe, and it was written by an architect who was very passionate about Lestron homes, local. Obviously, this is years ago. I don't know if she's still in town or whatnot, but if that's like a link, an article that we can provide.
Oh,
to-
yeah, so it wasn't one of the ones that was in here? Okay, we can add that to
Okay,
it.
it's something I recently found, but it might just be another good source or piece of
Sure.
information to share.
Yeah, I went back through newspapers.com again today to see if there was anything else I could find, which is where I found some of the other things related to trying to figure out which one was potentially the first one. And I did see some articles, but I thought we had all of them in there, but there might be one that we just have missed.
And then with the historic criteria, remind me again, did you say we have to have at least one of these as?
You just have to have one. And I had identified, I think, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, potentially. You could debate some of them about how if you think that those are correct. But we'll want to identify those because they get put, if it moves forward, into an ordinance as they're nominated.
Do we need to decide on those before we take a vote?
Yes.
I personally agree with your selections. I do
too.
So we can put those in the findings of fact.
Mhm.
If there's any other discussion, and then if not, the chair would need to ask for a motion and a second, and then we do need to do an individual vote of every member for the nomination.
Do any other members have any other questions or comments? Okay, put forth a motion. Should it be just a vote or
Someone
I
has
don't want to word this wrong.
One of the members has to make a motion.
I make a motion.
Oh, let Michael go ahead.
I make the motion to vote to approve.
Second.
I'm not gonna do all those in favor and all those opposed if we have to do individual.
Yeah, she only wants to read it, right, as a roll call.
I'm so sorry. My daughter was in a car accident. She's fine. He's fine. But my husband was calling. They were texting frantically and yeah, she's okay.
Oh my God.
It's all right. So sorry, you made a motion. Someone made a motion and it was second.
I seconded and
Okay.
then I guess we're ready for a vote.
Yes, roll call vote. So if you want to read out the names of each of the members.
Okay, Angela Thompson,
So what do I say?
Oh,
Yes or no?
Higher name.
Aye or nay?
Yes.
Okay, just curious. Okay.
Yes.
Michael Rose,
Aye.
Sue Delicato,
Aye.
Jane Corshi,
Aye.
Doug Stanley,
Aye.
Carol Dukey,
And then you have to say yourself.
Ann Hallbox, aye.
All right. We're gonna move this forward to the city council for the meeting on February 7th. The February 7th, the city council meets at 7:30. The public hearing will be the first item on that evening. And again, you have the opportunity to speak at that meeting too. I also have business cards if anyone needs to contact me for additional links or information, or anything else for related to the YouTube. And then we'll just continue on with the rest of our business.
And they can email comments to city council.
Yes, you can email comments to me and I'll make sure it gets in the city council packets, or you can email to the general city council email. Anyone else need one? Okay, you want?
Is it okay to talk then?
Yeah, we're at the point where we are going to just general, sorry, did I visitor? General visitor comments. So this is the opportunity for any general visitor comments.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna be moving out of state, within a couple months probably. And so I'm extremely, not only, because it's a historical home, but I need to know where I stand in terms of potential buyers. So how quick is this process? It seems like it might take another month or two.
So it would go before city council on the 7th of February, and then they would vote as early as the 21st of February. So that would be the last two steps.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And do any of you know of any resource of people who, because there are people out there who love lustrons and would love to buy one. Is there such a resource?
I don't know per se of a resource. I've been trying to talk with, again, the person who owns the one that's already on the register. I've talked with him a couple times about various lustrons and things like that. I can ask him if he knows of any others. I know that there was people, again, someone who contacted us in Brentwood who was wanting to move forward with, trying to move forward with that. So trying to get a lot of the local people together who still have lustrons, and who might be interested in them. Yeah, but at this point, I don't have a specific one.
I'm just checking on Facebook and there are several groups for
Yeah, there's
lustrons.
no-
I'm in a group and I don't find it
Not
very
that helpful.
honestly, no.
There's also a database for Lustron homes online. I don't know if you've seen that. And that it's run by people who have done a tremendous amount of research and so forth. I don't have the information right in front of me, but they may have some notion of where to
Yes.
find buyers, or I don't know.
Yeah, my-
On the neighborhood thing, where people put all their
Oh,
license stuff.
right.
Or might want to buy.
Yes, you're right about that, you're right about that. I'm on Hazel, 330 Hazel. Yeah, and my realtor has been here forever, so she might have some insights as well. Okay. I
Well,
appreciate
definitely
that.
in the slides from our November 9th meeting, it does have the articles that we found, the historic articles, which might be beneficial when listing. Just as additional history.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, thanks.
After visitors' comments, I don't think we have any new business
New business.
or old
No
business.
business.
I did send the email to all of you. Hopefully you saw that we will be, so a couple different things. On the night of the hearing, February 7th, Anne is also going to be there in the work session to give an update to council on historic preservation. All the commissions are going and doing like a 15-minute presentation on what they've been doing in the past year. We did that before COVID and we're picking it back up again. In addition, we do have, we did get our 30-year certificate for being a certified local government from the state, from the historic state offices. They're behind. We actually were due to get it in 2021. So that we were probably going to maybe recognize that on the same night. And then the state has gotten in touch with me, which I've told you that they're gonna come in March and do some training about funding and grants. And they're also going to meet with me to go through a whole series of questions to see like what other help we might need and what we are, whether we're progressing the way we need to. So I am going to need someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be the chair. It just depends on what people's flexibility is. They request one commission member and myself for 3 o'clock on that day to meet for about an hour and a half to go through the questions. I think I've got them hooked up to stay at the Tuxedo Park Bed and Breakfast, which I thought would be like a perfect, it looks like it wasn't going to work out because of their government rate, because they're going to visit us and then they're going to go down and visit the Historic Preservation Commission in Cape Girardeau. So they needed to stay over and I contacted her and she said, it's a Tuesday night. I can give them the government rate. And I think I've got them in there, which is awesome. So they will be coming to do that and then they'll be coming in the evening to our meeting. Other than that, any other updates from council?
No, not really. Just a brief one. At the last council meeting, Mayor Arnold gave an update on the boards and commissions subcommittee. So a few of us have been having like a subcommittee, a side committee to talk about boards and commissions overall and just kind of look at the write-ups and make sure that things are consistent, you know, that with numbers of terms and, you know, how you select the chair, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, it's more administrative, but there are some things on some of the committees like Mara's given some input on like expertise that might be needed on plan commission or things like that. So that's a subcommittee that is probably wrapping up pretty soon. And so then once that's done, I'll bring that back to you guys. So you have, although I don't expect it to change anything, but just kind of trying to make things a little bit more cohesive across the city.
Other than that,
So I did see your email about March 14th. I can be here.
Oh, wonderful.
Earlier. And then I know last month we did discuss because council's meeting on the 7th. Did we need to have our meeting on the 14th?
I think it comes down to whether I receive any demolition requests. At this point in time, I don't know of any demolition requests coming in. But if we have no demolition requests, if you guys want to not have that meeting, if we have nothing for the agenda, we can just wait and meet in March because we will be meeting with the council in February. So I'll probably know, I have to go look at my deadlines. I'll probably know in the next, I have to go look at the calendar. It's either the next week or week and a half that I know that the deadline is in order to apply for any demolitions, but I haven't met with any other new house construction that have been requesting a demolition that I remember. There's a couple of vacant lots that are coming in, I think, but no demos that I can remember.
Okay, and obviously the council meeting on the 7th, I'll be in attendance, but anybody else can join as well.
Yeah, anyone else gonna join either in person or via Zoom?
Okay.
All right, if there's nothing else.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.